President Obama, where appropriate. We will bring terrorists to justice in our courts and our military justice system. And we will insist that judicial review be available for every detainee. Audience member, it needs to be. President Obama, now, ma'am, let me finish. Let me finish, ma'am. Part of free speech is you being able to speak. But also, you listening and me being able to speak. Now, even after we take these steps, one issue will remain: just how to deal with those GTMO. Detainees who we know have participated in dangerous plots or attacks but who cannot be prosecuted. For example, because the evidence against them has been compromised or is inadmissible in a court of law. But once we commit to a process of closing GTMO, I am confident that this legacy problem can be resolved. Consistent with our commitment to the rule of law. I know the politics are hard. But history will cast a harsh judgment on this. Aspect of our fight against terrorism and those of us who fail to end it. Imagine a future 10 years from now or 20 years from now when the United States of America is still. Holding people who have been charged with no crime on a piece of land that is not part of our country. Look at the current situation, where we are force-feeding detainees who are being held on a hunger strike. I'm willing to cut the young lady who interrupted me some slack because it's worth. Being passionate about. Is this who we are? Is that something our founders foresaw? Is that the America we want to leave our children? Our sense of justice is stronger than that. We have prosecuted scores of terrorists in our courts. That includes Umar Farouk Abdulmutalab, who tried to blow up an airplane over Detroit. And Faisal Shahzad, who put a car bomb in Times Square. It's in a court of law that we will try Jakar Tsarnaev, who is accused of bombing the Boston Marathon. Richard Reed, the shoe bomber, is, as we speak, serving a life sentence in a maximum security prison here in the United States. In sentencing Reed, Judge William Young told him, "The way we treat you, is the measure of our own liberties." Audience member, how about Abdulmutalab locking up a 16-year-old? Is that the way we treat a 16-year-old? Inaudible. Can you take the drones out of the hands of the CIA? Can you stop the signature strikes killing people on the basis of suspicious activities? President Obama, we're addressing that, ma'am. Audience member, thousands of Muslims that got killed. Will you? Compensate the innocent families that will make us safer here at home? I love my country. I love Inaudible. President Obama, I think that, and I'm going off script, as you might expect here. The voice of that woman is worth paying attention to. Obviously, I do not agree with much of what she said. And obviously she wasn't listening to me in much of what I said. But these are tough issues, and the suggestion that we can gloss over them is wrong. when that judge sentenced Mr. Reed, the shoe bomber, he went on to point to the American flag that flew in the courtroom. That flag, he said, will fly there long after this is all forgotten. That flag still stands for freedom. So, America, we've faced down dangers far greater than Al-Qaeda. By staying true to the values of our founding, and by using our constitutional compass. We have overcome slavery and civil war and fascism and communism. In just these last few years as president, I've watched the American people bounce back from painful recession. Mass shootings, natural disasters like the recent tornadoes that devastated Oklahoma. These events were heartbreaking, they shook our communities to the core. But because of the resilience of the American people, these events could not come close to breaking us. I think of Lauren Manning. The 9/11 survivor who had severe burns over 80% of her body, who said, "That's my reality." I put a band-aid on it, literally, and I move on. I think of the New Yorkers who filled Times Square the day after an attempted car bomb as if nothing had happened. I think of the proud Pakistani parents who, after their daughter was invited to the White House, wrote to us. We have raised an American Muslim daughter to dream big and never give up because it does pay off. I think of all the wounded warriors rebuilding their lives, and helping other vets to find jobs. I think of the runner planning to do the 2014 Boston Marathon. Who said, "Next year, you're going to have more people than ever." Determination is not something to be messed with. That's who the American people are, determined, and not to be messed with. And now we need a strategy and a politics that reflects this resilient spirit. Our victory against terrorism won't be measured in a surrender ceremony at a battleship. Or a statue being pulled to the ground. Victory will be measured in parents taking their kids to school, immigrants coming to our shores, fans taking in a ball game. A veteran starting a business, a bustling city street, a citizen shouting her concerns at a president. The quiet determination, that strength of character and bond of fellowship. That refutation of fear that is both our sword and our shield. And long after the current messengers of hate have faded from the world's memory, alongside the brutal despots, and deranged madmen, and ruthless demagogues who litter history, the flag of the United States will still wave from small-town cemeteries to national monuments, to distant outposts abroad. And that flag will still stand for freedom. Thank you very, everybody. God bless you. May God bless the United States of America. Barack Obama. Ebenezer Baptist Church address. Delivered January 20, 2008, Ebenezer Baptist Church, Atlanta. Introductory remarks. Scripture tells us that when Joshua and the Israelites arrived at the gates of Jericho, they could not enter. The walls of the city were too steep for any one person to climb. They were too strong to be taken down by brute force. And so, the people sat for days, unable to pass on through, but God had a plan for his people. He told them to stand together and march together around the city. And on the seventh day he told them that when they heard the sound of the ram's horn, they should speak with one voice. And, at the chosen hour when the horn sounded and a chorus of voices cried out together. The mighty walls of Jericho came tumbling down. That's what scripture tells us. And there are many lessons to take from this passage, just as there are many lessons to take from this day. Just as there are many memories that fill the space of this church. As I was thinking about which ones we needed to remember at this hour, my mind went back to the very beginning of the modern civil rights era. Because before Memphis and the mountaintop, before the bridge in Selma and the March on Washington, before Birmingham and the beatings, the fire hoses, and the loss of those 4 little girls. Before there was King the Icon and his magnificent dream. There was King the young preacher and a people who found themselves suffering under the yoke of oppression. And on the eve of the bus boycotts in Montgomery, at a time when many were still doubtful about the possibilities of change. A time when there were those in the black community who not only mistrusted each other, but mistrusted themselves. King inspired with words not of anger, but of an urgency, a fierce urgency that still speaks to us today. Unity, he said, is the great need of the hour. Unity is the great need of the hour. Unity is how we shall overcome. What Dr. King understood is that if just one person chose to walk instead of ride the bus, those walls of oppression would not be moved. But maybe if a few more decided to walk, those foundations might start to shake. If just a few women were willing to do what Rosa Parks had been willing to do. Maybe the cracks in those walls would start to show. If teenagers took rides from north to south, maybe a few bricks would come loose. Maybe if white folks marched because they'd come to understand that their freedom was wrapped up in the freedom of others. That they too had a stake in the impending battle, the walls would begin to sway. And if enough Americans were awakened to injustice, if they joined together North and South, rich and poor, Jew and Gentile, then perhaps that wall would come tumbling down, and justice would flow like waters of righteousness, like a mighty stream. Unity is the great need of the hour. That's what Dr. King said. It is the great need of this hour as well. Not because it sounds pleasant, not because it makes us feel good. But because it's the only way we can overcome the essential deficit that exists in this country. I'm not talking about the budget deficit. I'm not talking about the trade deficit. Talking about the moral deficit in this country. I'm talking about an empathy deficit, the inability to recognize ourselves in one another. To understand that we are our brother's keeper and our sister's keeper, that in the words of Dr. King, we are all tied together in a single garment of destiny. We have an empathy deficit when we're still sending our children down corridors of shame. Schools in the forgotten corners of America where the color of your skin still affects the content of your education.